Popey, as we record this episode of the podcast, having just returned from a weekend on the road stateside. First and foremost, it almost felt normal making a trip south of the border. But second of all, I need to know the answer to something. And the something I need to know the answer to is this. What is it about the United States of America that makes them so bad at coffee? I'm sorry, but you cannot find a good cup of coffee to save your life south of the 49th, and I don't understand it.
I'm with you. The only good coffee down there is Starbucks.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind how bad coffee is in the States. I don't know why. They do so many things right. They do a lot of things wrong. And one of those things is coffee. It's not very good.
Like even Erie, where we were for the weekend, they do a great job. Shout out to our buddy Sean Bednard, who runs communications and does play-by-play for the Erie Otters, makes sure the media room is all taken care of. They've got a great media area. They bring in Tim Hortons Coffee, and I'm sorry, but unless it's just me, or unless I'm just extra tired because we've been on the road all weekend, but even the Tim Hortons coffee tastes different there than it does here. I don't get it, but God bless America. Could you please make a better cup of coffee? Please, because we're going to come back sometime and we want better coffee.
It's interesting. Like we talked about the Tim Hortons coffee being different. I stopped, I don't mind saying, I drove home myself and I was taking some weird way. I don't know what time or which way I was taking. But I was on some back road going through some small towns and I was like, I'm starving. I haven't eaten since like 1 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock right now. And saw McDonald's. I thought, whatever, I'll take it. I'm in the States, might as well eat McDonald's. And I got a Sprite. And it was completely different than any other Sprite I've ever tasted in my life. It was absolute trash. It was sugar water. I have no idea why it was different. It's Sprite. Don't they just ship it up to Canada? Isn't it the exact same?
You know what that reminds me of? Be careful, because when I do the fast food thing, I almost always now default to iced tea. I don't drink pop anymore. I haven't for a long, long time. But anyway, just be careful if you're ever in the States. You probably know this. Iced tea in the States, generally speaking, is just cold tea. You need sweet tea if you want what our Nest tea stuff is up here. Like basically, I'm drinking sugar tea. But anyway, get sweet tea in the States. Don't just get nice tea. You probably know all this stuff. We're just finding a reason to complain about our weekend.
Well, I want to talk to Jack, Sean, and Joey, our radio broadcast partners down in the States. Just when they come up here, if they have a Sprite or a coffee, do they think Canada sucks? Like, are they used to, maybe it's just your taste buds are used to one thing or another. But while we were down in Erie, I just got to say, the people around that organization are awesome. I love going to Erie. I know Don famously said, if you want to know what forever feels like, take the drive home after a game in Erie on a Sunday night. And I was thinking about that when I crossed the border and I get into like Fort Erie, Canada. And I'm like, I feel like I have been driving for 6 hours and I still have basically 2 hours to go. What is going on? Like, how does the time just keep rolling off and I'm not home yet? But the guys down there, I pulled in when I went down for the Saturday game. I tried to park in the parking garage, which is right next to the arena, which is where I parked before a couple of years ago when we went down for New Year's Eve. And the guy said, no, it doesn't open until like quarter after. Well, I want to be in the rink for 5 to do my pregame interviews. I'm like, well, I don't really have that luxury to wait. And he's like, well, you can park in this police officer comes over. He goes, what are you looking for, sir? I said, just looking for parking. I'm a broadcaster. And he goes, well, you can park in this lot right on the other side of this building here. It's free, but make sure to take all your valuables. People walk that parking lot and break windows to steal stuff. Yeah, I'm probably not going to park there then, man. Like, you're the officer. You're a block and a half away. Maybe you should be doing something about it.
Yeah, maybe you should patrol the parking lot that the thieves are apparently patrolling. Yeah.
Instead of telling some poor Canadian to go park there. Anyway, I found I parked in the actual, right across from the bus entrance, which is like the Erie Otters players parking and staff parking and stuff. And it says like authorized parking only, unauthorized vehicles will be towed. But I need to get in the rink. I'm like, if I just park there for 10 minutes and then I can move it, sure. But I parked there and I walked across, and the guy who's guarding the door to the arena on the backside, I said, hey, told him who I was and said, do you mind if I park over there? He goes, don't worry about it. I'll look after you. He said, if you come back tomorrow and you want to park there again, I'll be sitting in the white vehicle. If you need anything, just come find me. So he saw me walking over. He came out of his vehicle to come and talk to me. We got chatting. He was 57, I think, 59. He retired at 55 from the jail, and he's running security now with the Otters, but just a really nice guy. Made sure to, wish me good luck moving forward as I was leaving on Sunday afternoon. Their equipment guy helped me out over the moon to get players out of their dressing room for pregame interviews and made sure I had someone. Just a great people around that organization.
So that explains why general manager and president of hockey operations Dave Brown was complaining that some schmuck took his parking spot. I'll make sure I know who it was. No, and on the trip, why it feels like forever, I'm sure it's the barrier of the border. There's just something about it, no matter how smooth it is getting across. There's just something about crossing that border, I think, that makes it feel worse. But on your point, and I make no mistake, I'm not here to be a publicity arm for the Ontario Hockey League, but you talk about the great people around that organization in Erie, and I was feeling the same on the Sunday because we were down there for back-to-back games over the weekend, and I remember just getting up and getting into the rhythm of getting to the rink, and it's a game day and we're doing our routines and all of that stuff. And I remember walking in and thinking, like, this is the coolest thing. I wish this could be a full-time job instead of essentially a side hustle, because you don't make a living in the Ontario Hockey League. You work in it because you love the game, and it's a pretty high level to be covering the game at. But I would add for the other 19 teams, honestly, Chris. I know we haven't been to all of the markets this year because of the schedule, but it doesn't matter where you go. We are surrounded by really good people, great colleagues on the media side, great arena staff. When I was going into London earlier, and we were still doing vaccine passports, and the QR code I had didn't scan, and she's like, "Oh, here, go to this website and download a new one, and we'll make it work." And she walks me through everything, and she was friendly, and I just think we're lucky around this league, all 19 markets that we visit. And I hope visitors get the same experience from the folks in Kitchener. But anyway, it's a great league to be a part of. And as we stick with Erie, what a treat it was to be down there to celebrate their 25th silver anniversary over the weekend.
Great chrome buckets on the Otters for the two games.
I don't know.
I loved them. I didn't love them. No, I love the helmets. Look like blades of steel, LA Kings. But I wasn't a big fan of the silver jerseys. I liked the look of them. They were just hard to pick up numbers, at least off the sleeves. The backs, they pop. But I just think, well, someone with the Rangers organization even said to me after the game, so those Otters certainly had some players, eh? Because they put up video messages of all these former Otters and the names that are popping off. And I looked, we talked about it on air. I took a look. Kitchener has 2 50-win seasons in their history. The Otters did it 4 times in a row. That is crazy town. CHL record, obviously. But just the names that were popping up, and I thought they did a great job in bringing back some of the older guys from their early years to commemorate them with the ceremony for the 25th anniversary. But they also brought back a couple guys from the last 2 years to represent the overagers that didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And one of those guys was Jack Duff, former captain, and he made a speech to the Otters fans and stuff. I just thought it was a perfect way to do it, and a perfect time to take time to honor the guys that didn't get to say goodbye from their OA season, obviously the canceled season, and then the shortened one before, just to bring them back. And it was a perfect time to do so with the 25th anniversary. I thought it was a great ceremony.
It's funny, you talk about those 4 50-win seasons, and it's a 25-year franchise, and Kitchener being around a lot longer with just the 2 50-win seasons and not back-to-back. But it was also brought up to me, oh, look at the championships, 2 OHL championships, no Memorial Cups, but 2 OHL championships, again, in 25 years. And it was brought up to me by way of comparison to the Kitchener Rangers. Look, I get it because it's been a while in Kitchener, but if you look at the history, the team beginning in 1963 had its first 2 OHL championships inside 20 years, not 25. Now, again, there's a pride and a tradition, and I know the fans in Kitchener are getting restless. That's abundantly clear, but there have been 4 OHL championships over the history. And again, if you want to just compare chunks of time, 2 in 25 years for the Erie Otters, there were 2 in less than 20 when the Kitchener Rangers got started. And I just think, I guess that early, if you want to call it that, then success builds the appetite for greater success down the road. And look, there have been some great players to come through the Kitchener organization and so many others, but it was a lot of fun watching Erie celebrate the way that it did on the weekend. It was kind of cool to be a part of and reminisce ourselves about the players that we've seen come through this league from that organization, how Connor McDavid never won even the team scoring race when he was a member of the Erie Otters. It's wild when you think about it.
It is. And excuse me, every team has that history in championships, and well, most teams have championships and so on and so forth. But I just think 450-win seasons, like you're never going to
In a
CHL record.
row.
You can't compare that. It's crazy. I just want to I know I talked about it on the broadcast, but Emmett, they had a kids takeover day on the Sunday afternoon, and there was like kids announcing the starting lineups. There was even the mascot even had a baby otter with him. It was awesome. They did a great job. But this Emmett kid comes out for the first intermission, and I believe it was his dad, and I may have just been assuming, but I believe it was his father, who does the normal PA work in between intermissions, brought him out. And they had 2 Timbits games going on in each end zone, and they gave Emmett a mic and just said, "Tell us what's going on in that game." And he started commentating like he was a pro, and then gets on the mic and starts going, "Let's make some noise, fans." This kid was like 5. Maybe he was putting the mic up in the air, swinging it around. He was the highlight of the intermissions. The entire press row was laughing so hard at just how funny this kid was. So little Emmett, great job in Erie this weekend.
I'd say he was the highlight of the entire game for a Kitchener Rangers fan, because it was a rough one on that Sunday for the Rangers when the Otters beat them 6-2. Moving on to another part of the league, it was recognized. I find it curious. I'm not going to get conspiratorial on you here, but I don't know why they didn't just wait another 100 games, to take nothing away from the accomplishment. I just find it an odd milestone to celebrate, but nonetheless, it was celebrated. And he's one of the best damn guys in this game. Jimmy Gilchrist, the longtime voice of the Kingston Frontenacs, and the guy that takes care of everything when you visit Kingston. An absolute beauty. 2,900 games called in the Ontario Hockey League, and the Fronts recognized him for that this past weekend. Awesome stuff.
I might get conspiratorial on you.
Well, why did they wait till 3,000? That's what I'm wondering.
I'm hoping it's not for the reason I think. And Jimmy, I hope it's not for the reason I think. You got plenty of games left, my friend. This league is better with you in it. Please don't leave. It's true. He's an absolute beauty and synonymous with that organization.
100%.
As like Mav 1, Gilkey 2, like he's been there forever. He's called 2,900 games, and that's a massive number. And I think when you get to that point, maybe you do just celebrate every 100, considering there's only 68 games in a season. You don't know when he's going to eventually hang up the headset. So do you want to wait another year and a half before you recognize him, or do you want to take the chance to do it while he's still there? And you think of the names that have went through Kingston and the lack of playoff success they've had up there. They've always had Jimmy Gilchrist. So stick tap to Jimmy for doing 2,900, and hopefully you got to catch Don.
Well, you brought that up. And by the way, I just texted Jimmy just to plant the seed there. I said, I can't wait for the 3,000 celebration. So if he gets back before we're done recording here today, then we'll know what's going on. But we talked about that while we were away, and you're like, okay, hang on, 2,900 games, and he's been in it for how many years? 40. So, and Don did how many? But when you start doing the math, it's true. Like Don did about another 15 years beyond 40. He was 55 years, Don Cameron, associated with and calling games for the Kitchener Rangers, and went a shade over 4,000 games. So you take 2,900 over 40 years, and you take about half that and add it like that. That's the way the math works. So if Jimmy's got another 15 years in him, he might just catch the number put up by one Mr. Don Cameron.
It's crazy. Like when we were talking about that, it's crazy to think, because I've been doing this. I think this is our 4th season, 5th year with the canceled year. It's mathematically impossible for me to catch Don. Like he did it for so long.
Well,
I'm not doing games when I'm 85.
I get it. I was going to say it's not mathematically impossible, because that's the other thing. Don did do it up until his 79th year.
Well, that's what I mean. Right? I started when I was 30, started the radio side when I was 31.
Yeah.
55 years. I'm not doing it when I'm 86.
I get you.
I'm going to be in a home chasing around some cute nurse, rolling around in my wheelchair. Get over here. I'm not going to be going, and he moves it down to the left side. No, not for me. But it just goes to show that, a guy like Jimmy Gilchrist has been around for so long. It just puts it into perspective what Don did. And I don't overshadow what Jimmy did, but I think in Kitchener, you tend to just forget that, oh yeah, it was Don. He did the games for a while.
Yeah.
Especially when you know him, it's like, oh, then it's just Don or Mr. Cameron. But then you look at 55 years. No.
Yeah, it's staggering when you start trying to break it down. Jimmy has always extended the invitation to come up Kingston Way in the summer. I don't know about you, but I love visiting there on the circuit, and getting to see Jimmy's just a bonus while you're there. He says, come on up in the summertime. You never see it in the summertime. We'll have a drink together. I'm like, you know what, Jimmy, we will. So maybe now, if your conspiracy is in any way remotely true, now would be the time to catch him in the summertime.
Absolutely. Go up to Kingston in the summer. You don't have to twist my arm too hard. That's for sure. Got Sir Gordon right behind me.
Attaboy. We are getting awfully close to that time of the season. I believe the Saginaw Spirit have been mathematically eliminated in the Western Conference, and playoff positions are being secured across the board on both sides. It's going to be a wild finish in the West, given the weekend that both the Otters and Rangers had for different reasons, right? The Otters very much keep themselves in the conversation, and the Kitchener Rangers, while they're still in control of their own destiny, certainly made their lives a little more difficult with 6 games to go in the season.
They did. It's going to be fun down the stretch, that's for sure, at least in the Western Conference, with 3 teams vying for 2 playoff spots. I just took a look at the standings on the league website. I didn't know if they would put like a
I don't think they put the mark there that
for
when they don't
eliminated, but nothing there right now. But I didn't run the math. I just want to give a quick shout out to the OHL, because we tend to be critical of their tweets sometimes and just how they relay suspensions and so on and so forth. And we've talked before just about how we like how teams like, I'm just going to use Oshawa because they're the best at it. Sorry to the other 19 teams, but just the social media presence and, having fun with it, as opposed to just treating it like it's another way to get people to click to go to your website type of thing. Oshawa has a lot of fun with it. And on April Fools, the OHL had some fun with it. And I thought it was a fantastic tweet.
Did they say that the Cornwall Royals are coming back? Because I want the Cornwall Royals to come back.
They did not.
Oh.
So you'll have to wait on that.
Okay.
But the tweet was just a typical tweet that they send out that you wouldn't even look twice at least I wouldn't. And they basically just said the France, Sting, Wolves, Generals, and Ice Dogs were all victorious to close out the month of March on Thursday. Recap, and then with the link, and had pictures of a player from each of those teams.
Oh, I did see that tweet.
Yeah, but those were the teams that lost. They said they all ended the month off with a win, and every one of those teams was defeated the night before. So you click the link, and it's just goes on to, it's basically just a recap of the games, but every team they mentioned in their tweet lost and didn't win. So the replies from the OHL clubs are absolutely hilarious. Like, Oshawa was one of those teams that lost, but the tweet said that they were all victorious. So Oshawa replies, not cool. And Sudbury says, so how do we go about getting those 2 points to come with this victory? Oshawa replies, please relax. It was, if you want a good chuckle because the teams had some fun with it, I thought it was a very small way for an April Fool's joke, but I don't know if they intended it to be that funny. I thought it was absolutely hilarious, and clearly the teams did too.
Okay, it's funny because you mentioned to me as we were getting started to record today, hey, did you see the league's April Fool's tweet? I'm like, no, I didn't. I felt kind of bad because I try to stay up on things like that, and certainly when we're in game mode, we're keeping track of all the social media things, and we were playing all weekend, the first, the second, and the third. So now the way you describe it, I did see that tweet. I didn't think anything of it, quite frankly. So
me either. I saw the Oshawa Generals response, and I'm like, oh, did they say something? And I thought, oh, maybe the OHL like upset Oshawa. I want to see what they wrote. And then I look, I'm like, they lost, but they said and then it clicks. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is genius.
Not bad.
Such a good tweet. The best response was from Windsor. And it was actually to Sarnia, because Sarnia lost to Windsor. And Sarnia just sent a response and just said, that's just rude. And Windsor response, 2 L's in less than 24 hours.
Oh, ouch. To your point though, earlier.
I love that stuff.
And it is like, there are a lot of teams that are doing a really, really good job with their social media. I mentioned this to you over the course of the past week because we had Bill Bowler on this podcast last week. And no sooner did we post the links to the podcast, both on Twitter and on Facebook, our OHL Stories Facebook page. By the way, jump on board and start following if you're not already. But then the Windsor Spitfires were sharing it out into their network as well. And they didn't get tagged on the Facebook post. So whoever's doing that stuff is really keeping an eye on it. And I'm sure there's an idea behind it that, hey, that's where our younger demographic is hanging out. As I say, as the old guy who's still on Facebook, but that notwithstanding, I think a lot of these teams are taking pretty seriously what can happen and what can be accomplished on social media. And I think that's a really, really good sign for the league.
Absolutely. Real quick before we get to our guest, Mike, if I saw someone breaking into a car in my neighborhood, what should I do?
You know what you should do, Chris, is you should call Crime Stoppers. 1-800-222-TIPS or WaterlooCrimeStoppers.com, because they are the proud sponsors of this podcast. And here's the beauty of you making that call. It is anonymous. When you make the call to Crime Stoppers, you are kept anonymous, and they will pay up to $2,000 for tips that lead to an arrest in a case. So it's really important to just drive home the fact that you get to remain anonymous, that you can collect a cash prize, and you are staying engaged in what's happening in your community. So as you stare out your window right now, Chris, as we're recording this, and you see that car being broken into, we'll introduce our guest, and you can call Crime Stoppers in Waterloo Region, earn yourself a cash reward, and hey, help out the community. Well done, sir.
3 years as a member of the Sudbury Wolves in this league, tending the twine up north before getting shipped down to the Erie Otters. Yes, this is a very Otter-centric podcast. And it was in his year and a half with the Erie Otters where he won an OHL championship and went to the Memorial Cup. Yes, he was part of one of the seasons of the 450 win seasons in a row. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest this episode for Waterloo Crime Stoppers, Troy Timpano.
I have to start with the position, Troy, because I always find it fascinating, not just with the pressure, but with somebody who decides, you know what I think I want to do for my life is stand in front of frozen rubber. Why a goalie?
Yeah, you got to be crazy, right?
Exactly.
My story is kind of funny. And when I was kind of starting out in hockey, house league, they pass around the equipment, right? And it was something that my dad kind of never really wanted me to do. He always said, don't put your hand up. And there was one day that he was bending over, untying my skates, and they were asking, and he wasn't paying attention. I threw my hand up, and the rest is history. I went in, really enjoyed it. I think actually I ended up getting a shutout my first game, and it was kind of like a destined position for me. They had parents contacting my parents saying he should try out for the next level. And that's kind of how it started. And I guess really the first time I thought, I could probably stick to doing this was maybe when I was 8-9 years old, and Ajax Pickering Raiders was the team that I initially grew up on for a couple of years. So yeah, the position is it's unique to say the least, but I had my fun while it lasted, at least.
What kind of mindset do you need if you're talking to a young goalie today? Because I mean, just from the broadcast booth looking down, it's like you got to forget the last goal every single time, but sometimes you get scored on 3, 4, 5 times a game. What kind of mindset do you need?
A quick one that kind of race pretty quickly. Yeah. It's a position that if I were to tell a younger kid, I'd say, you know what, you go out there, you have fun, and just you work hard and don't give up on the play. It's one of those kind of unique positions, right? Where, it's really what you put into it, and you can't have any fear going into it as well. You see goalies a lot of time, if they're scared, they're puck shy, it's not for them. So, I mean, yeah, for a younger goalie like myself, when I started out, it was kind of just my dad always told me he's more proud of how hard I work in practice than anything else. And that's kind of the mentality that I had moving forward through my career.
If you started out there in Ajax Pickering playing goal and playing hockey, obviously as an Ajax boy, did you ever cross paths with David Branch before you were in the Ontario Hockey League?
No, actually, no. First time I would have met David Branch, I was invited. It would have been after I was drafted. I was invited to a Hockey Canada goalie symposium, and it was really a discussion where Jordan Binnington was actually on the panel as well with me, and it was a kind of a discussion of the development of goaltending and why, at the time, especially and continuing, the Finnish goaltenders were dominant. and they were kind of assessing the up and coming development of Hockey Canada goaltending. And so that was actually the first time I got the honor to meet him.
Speaking of a goaltending symposium and a guy like Jordan Binnington, when you decided that this was going to be your position, Troy, was there a goaltender you looked up to, tried to model your game after?
I wouldn't say I modeled my game after him, but Martin Brodeur was always my guy, you know, and whether it was just, I always liked the Devils growing up as well. You know, I'm a Leafs fan at heart, but growing up, watching Martin Brodeur was special to me. I was number 30 for the longest time up until my OHL draft year, where I switched to number 33 because of my father. So that was a guy that I wouldn't model my game after, because it's very hard to do with the way he played. But yeah, he was a role model to me for sure.
What's the connection to 33 and your dad?
He was just a number that he wore his entire life. It didn't matter what sport it was, and it was. As soon as I wanted something that had a little bit more meaning, and to make that connection with my dad, it's been something that's now a part of our family. You know, I have a tattoo of it. He has a tattoo of it, and you know, it's just something that's kind of now kind of embedded in us. So yeah, it's always been that way now with that number.
We've been talking for maybe 5 minutes already. Twice your father has come up in reference to you and hockey. Tell me about your parents and what they meant to the development of you as a hockey player.
Where do I begin? I owe them everything. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't know where I was right now. They sacrificed more than I can imagine to put me through hockey and be there at every game and practice, you know, and even my sister too, she had to give up a lot because, you know, my parents were so dedicated to, you know, helping me achieve what I could. So kind of growing up, they were there every step of the way, the highs and the lows, and they played a huge part in the success that I had.
I have to take just a half step back, because when you mentioned being a Leafs fan, you're talking to a fellow Leafs fan here, and even more so now because you're a goalie. How do you feel as a fan watching this team? And of course, hearing like the criticisms or the talk for the last month has been, oh, if they don't find goaltending, they're in trouble.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of the story with the Leafs over the last bit, right? Goaltending has always been a hot topic with the Leafs. And as a goaltender, I understand the pressure that is on, especially in the market that the Leafs are in. Okay, it's not easy, and I do feel for them, because you know they don't have it easy, and any mistake they make, anything that really happens, it usually comes back to the goaltending. So I hope you know, moving forward with it's Kallgren, right? Am I pronouncing that right? Kallgren?
Yep.
Kallgren, Campbell, and even Mrazek. Like at the end of the day, it's not an easy market to be in, and so for them to just you know, go out there and be able to, you know, stop the puck, it's kudos to them.
When you get to the Ontario Hockey League, it's the Sudbury Wolves who I want to say call your name because that's such the cliche, but of course it gets posted on a computer, right? The Sudbury Wolves are going to take Troy Timpano. It shows up on your computer screen, and there you go. What'd you think when Sudbury picked you?
You know, it was crazy. Initially, you know, it was just, you know, you're filled with excitement. I didn't honestly know too much about the city. I met with Blaine. It was Blaine at the time. I met with him during their playoffs, and he kind of it was prior to the draft, and he was, you know, kind of giving me a little bit of a background on Sudbury, and you know, so I that's pretty much all I really knew when I was drafted. And then I got to go to the orientation. I got to see the city myself. I got to watch a game. That was when it really sunk in, and saying, this is, you know, this almost reminds me of like a smaller Toronto, you know, in terms of how the fans treat the team, and kind of that's all they got, right? So the Sudbury Wolves were like a mini Toronto, and I got to see that firsthand in the playoffs, and it just filled me with excitement. I couldn't wait to kind of get started. And the ride home was interesting. My mom was bawling her eyes out because it was 4 hours away, but I ensured for her that it, you know, I come visit whenever you want, and sure enough, they did. So.
Tell me about being in Sudbury, because it's still honestly one of my favorite barns to go to, because it's got character, right? It's that old building, the wooden slats on the ceiling, some great history in there, and of course that raggedy old wolf on the wire. But what's it like being a member of that organization?
It's cool, you know. I was there when I was late birthday, so 15. I was there for when I was 15 years old. So for 3 years, you know, you're spending some key teen years kind of growing and developing. The city, the barn, the organization as a whole, they're very world class. And especially the guys when I was there was Nick Baptiste, you know, Nathan Vansell, and we got Trevor Carrick at one point, Radek Faxa. So we had a lot of good talent as well. And being a younger guy, being able to soak that all in, even with Palaziz as an overager goaltender, kind of as a mentor. You know, I was without that as my as starting off in my career, it really did help my development. And yeah, you know, honestly, the Sudbury Wolves, the history in that barn is phenomenal. I've always loved it. We had some issues. We had some issues at point. I remember it was my first year, the home opener against the Sioux Greyhounds. We got fogged out.
I remember that.
The rink filled up with fog, and you couldn't see anything. I remember there was even a play, and guys were trying to shoot it from the other end because the goalie couldn't see. So they actually ended to call the game. They called the game, and they had to reschedule it. There was another incident where one of the guys at the rink drilled too much into the ice and punctured a pipe. So the whole ice started to flood at the one end. So we've had our experiences, but the barn itself, you know what, a lot of history that I loved it.
You talk about some of that talent you had with you there in Sudbury. You had a lot of talent towards the end of your career, True. We'll get to that because there's some big names on some other team that you might have been a part of. But still with Sudbury, I talked to actually one of your former coaches earlier today, Paul Fixter, and he remembers you as being one of 3 players who attended his introductory press conference in Sudbury. What do you remember of Fixie?
Yeah, that was it would have probably been myself, Capabianco, and Stefan LeBlanc. And,
exactly who he said it was. Yeah.
Yeah, memory, right? Surprised all the pucks have taken off my head, but yeah. So, you know, first time meeting him, it was I was used to that kind of dynamic in a coach with my minor league coach. You know, kind of hard nosed, right to the point, and you know, kind of no BS. And I look forward to that. I look forward to that because you know, you're going up to another level. You want that full experience. You want it to be, yes, enjoyable, but you also want a coach that cares and it will take a team. And my first initial, I guess, time meeting him, yeah, no, it was good, and hopefully he felt the same way. But yeah, no, I liked Fixture as a coach. I think he was there for I think a year and a half or so when I was there. So it wasn't overly long time, but no, I had a good relationship with him.
You met a young kid while you were in Sudbury too, that you maintained a relationship with even after you left the Wolves organization. Tell us about Wyatt.
Yeah, Wyatt Songers. So I met Wyatt when we were doing a bowling event. It was called Bowling with the Wolves, and right away he kind of drew to me, and you know, I was just, you know, being a 16-year-old role model as best as I could, and kind of took him under my wing, and we had fun. It was a good event, and then afterwards, I guess my parents saw him at our games. He had our jersey. He had my jersey, and kind of from that point, he was really the first fan, I'd say, that really drew to me. And so when I saw that, and I ended up speaking with his parents and whatnot. Wyatt, he has autism, and so it was something where I wanted to help them out and kind of form this relationship with them as best as I could. And to this day, you know, I was talking to him actually a couple of days ago, and he's excelling in school. He's doing really well, and it's nice to kind of have that. And you don't really know how much you really can affect someone's life until, you know, you really, you know, 10 years goes by and you still have this connection, and the relationship means it's a mutual relationship that's just so beneficial. So it was really nice getting to know him and his family.
What was it like going back to see him when you were no longer a Sudbury Wolf, when you're playing for the Otters, but you would see him on the road?
Yeah, I remember I got him a jersey, an Otters jersey right away. So he could start wearing that. And I think he actually wore it to a few Sudbury games when we weren't even playing. Erie wasn't even playing, so it was kind of funny. But he supported me all along the way. He was always a Timpano fan and a Sudbury fan. So it was kind of nice to always have that support. And it was definitely different being on the other side of things when it was in Sudbury. Playing with Erie. So, but and again, the support from him and his family to this day, even when I'm not playing now with my business, it's just been awesome.
Is he a Ryerson Rams fan now too?
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Yeah, I'm sure he is.
You said something, Troy, that kind of struck me. You're trying to be the best 16-year-old role model that you could be. I think about this from time to time because you guys as players in the Ontario Hockey League are asked to do an awful lot. Obviously, job number one for you when you come into the league is development and moving on to a hopefully pro career. But so much is asked of you in the community where you're playing. In all honesty, do you ever just roll your eyes and say, "Oh my God, another reading at a school, another bowling event," things like that?
You know what? I honestly, that was one thing about the OHL that I absolutely loved. I loved the community work we got to do, and I got to meet, like Wyatt, some incredible people along the way. And without that, you look back, and again, like I said, you don't realize the lives you touched. I posted a video and someone responded saying that I have your autograph. You have a picture with my mother. You visited her in the hospital. And I'm sitting there like, that's awesome. And I'm happy I was able to experience that and do that. And the amount of people I met along the way is something that you don't forget. So I always loved it. It was never something that I felt was taking up my time or a burden. I always offered to do it, and I was really fortunate that it was probably my second or third year in Sudbury where I had more time because my age in school on my side wasn't as time consuming. So I was able to do more. And as soon as I was able to do more, I just, I was looking for every opportunity.
You mentioned getting to Sudbury when you're 15 years old still. And then by the time you're 18, you're on the move, not only out of Sudbury and to a new city, but really to a new country when the Erie Otters trade for you. How'd you find out you were traded?
So I was actually in the middle of goaltending camp with Pierro Greco. And I heard from my agent before I was on my way there that there could be potential in a trade. Funny enough, I was actually on the ice with Jake Lauer, who was the goalie in Erie at the time. I didn't mention anything. It was just talk. But it wasn't until I got off the ice and I was on my way home and then I got a call from my agent saying it's done. And I had a no trade and they asked me if I wanted to waive it. And I said, let's pack my bags. I'm ready for a new opportunity. Sudbury gave me everything and helped me a lot. And I was just, I was ready for the next chapter.
I can't let that name slide by without having a further conversation because Grex spent some time as the goaltending coach in Kitchener.
Yeah.
Truth here now, Troy. Have you ever heard anybody use the F word more than Pierro Greco?
Surprisingly, I actually
Okay, yes. Fair.
So no, Pierro's he was always a unique guy. He had a sense of humor, and he played a huge part in my career. Like realistically, when I look back, I joined the GTHL in minor Adam, I want to say, and I played for the Mississauga Reps. That was my first time in the GTHL, and that's when I met Pierro Greco. So I met him in Adam, and from that time on, he was the guy that I went to. He was the guy that I went to, and he played a huge part. He completely changed my game. So fortunate to meet him.
You know what? I say that in jest and with love because we had some great conversations, Grex and I, over the years, and they were salty at times, but that's what we do when we're away from the rink and whatever. But I guess obviously based on your work with him, no surprise at all that he's doing what he's doing now in the National Hockey League.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. His approach to the game and how much he loves it is kind of just speaks volumes. And you can see that when he's working with the guys, if you screw up or you're not doing something right, he'll let you know. Right. And it was always funny. And something that I always remember, is when they would do these goalie camps and they'd have the nets kind of scattered across the ice. He could be at the other end of the rink and you could screw up on the other side and he'll fly down the rink and start yelling. And it's, I think that's the passion you need. You need someone that cares, just as much as you. So he was awesome. He was a huge influence.
You get to Erie and things, as I recall, started pretty damn well. Shutout in the first game, 7 straight wins, if I'm not mistaken, when you started with the Otters.
Yeah, it was, as a goalie or really any position, it's kind of what you hope for when you start on a new team. I was fortunate enough that, we had a phenomenal start. The guys really bought into at the start. We had, some guys still in NHL camps. So we had a lot of younger guys playing like in Lodnia, and these guys they bought in, and we went on a great run, and I can't take all the credit for it because we did have a really strong team. But as a goaltender, what more can you really ask for? So it was fun. I was fortunate for it, and it was a good start.
Is there a difference at all in your mind, having played in both conferences, between the way the game is played in the Eastern Conference of the O and the Western Conference?
Yeah. I feel like when I played, and I'm sure it might be still the same, because you got some pretty good teams in the West. The West to me was always the more difficult conference. I always felt it was more of a tougher opponent. Like you'd be playing, and it was, I don't know if it was just the way that the matchups, the way it was lined up with the teams and who they got and who they drafted at the time. And you know what I mean? All circumstantial, but it was always more difficult playing a Western team. They're more hard nosed and they played more of a tougher game, I felt.
We talked about that talent earlier in Sudbury, but some of these names, and you mentioned Lodnia as a young kid, but then you've got DeBrincat, you've got Radish, you've got Strome. What were practices like for you?
Ecstatic. I loved it. I loved every second of it. It was a challenge every minute on the ice. And honestly, that again played into a huge part of my development. I found that there was not a single guy on that team that didn't work hard. And that was so important and playing a huge role in our successful year. But it stemmed honestly, Chris Knoblock as a coach, like that, it just stemmed from our coaching staff all the way down, and it was just contagious. You saw Strome working hard, DeBrincat working on a shot every practice, and it was just, like I said, contagious. And for younger guys coming in and seeing that, they just fed off it. So practices were fun. They were very challenging, and I always loved to stop these guys. That was one of my favorite things.
What about in gameplay? Was there a guy who either had your number or that you really took delight in stopping?
Honestly, the one guy that I feel like had my number was Marner. He did bury a few goals on me. I want to say when I was in Sudbury, especially, like I'll never forget. I think it was 6-0 after the first period. But I never told if my coach, if it's 6-0, if I was playing bad, he kind of had a sense of that, and he usually would take me out. But there was times where I was just getting peppered with shots, and he'd ask me, "Do you want to come out?" And I would be like, "Leave me in there. Just, you may as well leave me in. I'll take the shots. It's 6-0. A comeback against London might be pretty hard at this point. So just let me go in. Let me battle." And that's kind of the mentality I had, especially in Sudbury. But Marner, I feel like always had my number, which is unfortunate. But
not just yours, I don't think, Troy.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm curious about that dynamic that you just talked about, because again, having never been on the ice in that position, how does it usually work between a goaltender and a coach when you're in a position like that? Because lots of times we just had a night in Sarnia where I saw that Benjamin Gaudreau had been left in for all 9 goals against. And typically as broadcasters, we say, well, why would he have been left in for all 9? Is he being embarrassed or anything like that? What's the dynamic usually like between a goalie and a coach when it comes to it's either time to get the hook out or not?
I think there has to be a bit of an understanding. And again, the team that we had in Sudbury, my second and third year, we were not a very strong team. So there'd be nights where we'd be versing a top team. We most likely were not going to win. And I kind of just went in there and saying, I'm just going to do the best I can to stop the next shot. the relationship I had with my coaches, they kind of understood too, like anything, you could read a game and, a bad goal next to a goal maybe I didn't have a chance on. So they gave me the benefit of the doubt most times. And again, depending on the situation of the game, depending on how we were playing, that kind of played into a factor as well. So like I said, there was a number of times where, I was left in for a number of goals, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Like I wanted to stay in there. I wanted to battle. And I was fortunate enough that I had that relationship and those conversations with my coach saying, if I'm in there and we don't really have a chance to win, and you see that I'm battling, just let me go. And fortunate enough, that unique relationship, you can do that.
When you got to Erie, you joined a team that had posted 3 consecutive 50-win seasons. So the year you joined them is the chance to establish a new CHL record. Was it discussed at all?
At the start of when I was there, I feel like I was told that we weren't really sure how the year was going to go. I think actually when I was first traded there, the rumor was we were going to be a mid-pack team. We were going to be a fifth, sixth, maybe a 4th place team. And so the mentality was never to set another record. I mean, we were very fortunate to do so, but it was never really discussed at the start until I feel like that the start of the season, we went on a bit of a run, saw kind of what we were dealing with and the players and the foundation we still had and the core group that we still had. And then obviously Chernak came back and then Strome came back. And I feel like the talk became more and more. But again, 50 wins was never really our goal. It just kind of played into our next step. We always wanted to get to the championship, win the championship, Memorial Cup. So in order to do that, each night in, night out, we just kind of had to buy into to Chris Knoblock's game plan, and Chris Knoblock's game plan gets you 50 wins. So it worked.
How does it do that? What's Chris Knoblock's game plan?
He's a phenomenal coach. And as a goalie, it's a little bit different for me to understanding the kind of strategic and the strategy, obviously. But he just ensured that every guy, it's hard as a coach. You need to gain the respect from your players. He had it from day one. I'm pretty sure when he got in, there's stories that I heard about, guys drinking on the bus before he got there. And when he got there, he cut it right out. And that was kind of the tipping point, I think, for Erie to kind of move on and start plugging away at these 50-win seasons. He made a big impact. But in terms of gameplay, he was just very, very smart. He was always a student of the game himself. He never, he would be reviewing tape after, and I'll never forget what he was able to do for me. And I actually recently posted about it too, because I came across the video, which I was struggling for a few games in our playoffs. And he pulled me into his room and handed me a USB. And he said, take this home, plug it into your laptop. And I got home, plugged it in. It was a highlight. It was a 5-minute highlight tape of throughout the year of me making obviously some saves, just to give me back my confidence kind of. And from that point forward, it kind of really showed that he believes in me, he trusts me, and he knows that I am what I'm capable of to kind of lead this team. So it meant a lot. But that's kind of the dynamic of Chris Knoblock and the game plan, or how you achieve that 50, those 50 wins. It stems a lot from the relationship he had with the players, I believe.
When you're a goaltender on a team that is that talented, a lot of people make references to Grant Fuhr, of course, in the 1980s with the Edmonton Oilers, and everybody says that Fuhr was always the best at not letting the next one in. What's your approach if it changes at all as a goaltender with that much talent in front of you? Yeah, there was some nights where I think I saw 7 shots, and coming from Sudbury where I'd see close to 70, like it was something where I wasn't used to at the start, but it really, I always prided myself on being very mentally strong. And so for me, I never kind of, I guess, allowed myself to get distracted or unfocused.
it was tough. I mean, again, yeah, you could go almost a whole period with having maybe 1-2 shots, and then the next shot could be a breakaway. So it was just staying ready and kind of, keeping a fresh mind as well, and staying in the game. You don't want to let your mind go, which it can be tough in those situations. But I was always very attentive to the game, and part of the reason why I believe, which allowed me to stay really focused, was the puck handling. I loved to play the puck. And so anytime the team would be dumping the puck or whatever, if I was very active out of the net, it allowed me to stay in the game. So I think that also played a big part into it.
That year that you go on to win the OHL championship, obviously so many great memories from it, and we'll get to some of those, especially in that playoff run. But you had a whale of a health scare earlier in the season.
Yeah.
What is walking pneumonia?
So, yeah, I wish I could get into more science behind it, but I developed the flu. It was just the flu, and I remember I actually played. It was against London, and I played the game while feeling like I was sick to my stomach, chills, aches, everything, and we actually won the game. But after the game, I said, I am not doing well. Went home, and it was about 3 days of very, very, very sick, high fevers. And then eventually my parents were going to come and take me home till I was better, because the guys were going to go on the road. They got there, and I said, honestly, I don't think I could sit in the car for 4 hours, take me to the hospital. I went to the hospital. I had a fever of 105. Thankfully, actually, my billet dad, Steve Gilmour, is a neurosurgeon in the UPMC hospital there. So he was able to I think he played a big role in me getting the intensive care that I needed. But yeah, I guess the flu, it developed into a walking pneumonia, which I think they called it mycoplasma or whatnot. But the X-ray was scary. I literally only had one lung. I got a chest tube put in. I was in the hospital for 8 days. But the 3 days that I was in the intensive care, they didn't really know what was going on. I didn't have a chest tube put in. I was getting worse and worse. And it was scary, but there was a time where I was like, okay, like, what's going to happen? My parents were there. They didn't leave my side. My mom was always crying. Like, it got scary, but I never actually thought I was going to die. However, when I told my doctor afterwards the story and everything, he goes, oh my God, you almost died. Then I didn't realize the whole time that I was in bed, all I thought was recovering, getting better, and coming back and winning a championship. And I think that manifestation really allowed me to get better within, as soon as I got out of the hospital, it was 2 weeks. I was twice a day in the gym. I was eating a lot more food. I lost over 20, 30 pounds when I was in the hospital. So getting that back was tough. But Andrew Coop, who was our strength and conditioning coach, he would stay with me when we got back after road trips. He'd be with me at 1 and 2 in the morning working out, because I said I need to get back. And I remember the first game was against Barrie, and we won like 7-4, but the goals that I let in were bad. And I just I don't feel like myself. It wasn't until my 4th game that we played Windsor, and I felt like I finally got my feet under myself. But all along the way with those games that I was having, and I wasn't doing well, and I was down on myself, our general manager, Dave Brown, was coming up to me and he goes, don't worry, you got it. We believe in you. We trust in you. It'll come back. And, like I said, it was about 2-3 weeks until I was able to really get back and play. But it was scary. It was scary at the time. Thankfully, I overcame it. But yeah, it's crazy to look back on.
It's scary to listen to, Troy. And I'm thinking, like, you're still a young man, but at 19, you go through this. And now, even as somebody who's just 24 years old, does it change your perspective on life? Did it change anything for you?
I think more so now when I look back, it does. At the time, being young, I didn't really realize how serious the condition was, because I felt I'm 19, I'm healthy, I'm not going to die. I never thought about it like that. But now looking back and understanding how serious the condition I had, it definitely puts it in perspective. And it really, I think, outlined kind of my mentality moving forward as now I've gotten older, to maintain the health and maintain healthy habits and the shape that I'm in, because like I said, my doctor basically said, if you weren't in the shape you were in, if you were overweight at 19 or whatnot, you wouldn't have made it. So that put things in perspective for sure, in terms of health. And I've kind of tried to, especially during the last pandemic, like the last couple of years during the pandemic, I tried to stress to my family and everything, stay healthy. It's it could be survival of the fittest. And so that's kind of the mentality that it definitely did alter my perception for sure.
So you battle back, you get back on the ice, and the team, it's almost, as I realize this, almost 5 years ago to the day that we're recording this, that you notched the 50th win to set the CHL record. What happened after the win when the Erie Otters had this new CHL record?
It's 5 years. I do remember being ecstatic. Like, I was thrilled. Again, I came from a team that we didn't get 15 wins. So it was something that when we got 50, I was screaming after the game. I had my hands up. I may have been the most excited, but at the end of the day, it was just one step closer to where we were headed. But it was cool. It was definitely cool to be a part of. Yeah.
Okay, so where you were headed was obviously that OHL championship, the Memorial Cup appearance. Second round, though, that year, and we've talked about Mitch Marner already and the London Knights already, but how nervous were you? I mean, that go 7 games, you have to win game 7 against the mighty London Knights to advance.
Yeah, it was my first playoff experience too in the OHL, being my 4th year. So it was tough. I'd say that the pressure was definitely on me, especially when the trade deadline, back it up a bit, the trade deadline was approaching, and I had Dave Brown come up to me and say, do you think you can do it? Do you think you can be the guy? And I said, I'd be honored to. And so they had that confidence in me. And when the playoffs came, obviously, I'd say I struggled at the start. The pressure was definitely on. And the guys, honestly, the team that we had was phenomenal, that allowed me to, I may have not played my best, but the team was able to make up for it. So that was fortunate. But game 7 against London, I believe I actually got pulled. Now, someone that doesn't get enough credit during our time there, and you don't hear the name enough, is Joseph Murdaka, our other goalie. When I was sick, even, he came in and won 12 straight. Now, the previous record was 13, and that was for me at the start of the year, and I was rooting him on because I wanted him to do it. But he doesn't get enough recognition. Joe Murdaka, he was awesome to have, and he stepped in and he helped us win that game 7. So kudos to him. But yeah, he came when the pressure was on me and I couldn't perform. He was there, so it was awesome.
Did it feel like after that second round series versus London that you had kind of reached the summit? I know you still have 2 series to go to win the OHL championship, but there's just something about those big series, those 7-game battles.
Yeah, we knew that we had it in for us. I knew the London was definitely a big test for us, and we knew that if we could overcome that, I feel like we could get the ball rolling, and nothing would really stop us. And facing an Owen Sound team, then they had a phenomenal team too that year, and they were tough to play. They had, I feel like, the matchup was really good. We always had very fun games against them. But again, Murdaka, I believe, started the first game of the series. I think we may have lost, and then they went back to me. And then from that point on, that we kind of rolled. I think we won game 6 of that series. But that London, like I said, that London was the big test. And I feel like once we won that, the guys were we were so confident in our ability that nothing was going to stand in our way.
Bit of an aside, but when you mention Owen Sound, I think about traditionally what they tend to do when they play the Erie Otters is go down and play back-to-back games on a weekend to save one of the trips later on. As an Otter, what was the travel schedule like compared to what it was like as a Sudbury Wolf?
The biggest difference was obviously the border. But again, I went from 4 hours north from my home to 4 hours south, and the way to do it, I guess the divisional play, we always had to cross the border, and that always took the most time. So that was unfortunate. However, it wasn't as bad, I want to say, because we played Mississauga quite a bit, and to get there was still, I think it was less than 4 hours. Niagara was right there, Flint, Saginaw. So they weren't too bad. Sudbury, our closest was North Bay at an hour and a half. And I think the next was either Barrie or Sioux at 3 or 3.5 hours. So I was used to it. I think that was also nice that it wasn't like I was going from a team like Mississauga, or relatively close games to, Sault Ste. Marie. So I was already experienced in the extensive travel that Sudbury had. And never mind that, the weather, getting back from a road trip at 3 a.m. in Sudbury was never fun, especially when it's car.
That's right. That's the thing that people forget about. I've had some of those when you get back from a northern swing, as we'd call it from here in Kitchener, right? We'd go up through North Bay, Sudbury, and Sioux, and you come back home and there's 4 days of snow on top of your car.
Yeah. That was always, it always made it interesting. And as a rookie in Sudbury, I was always cleaning cars like, oh my God, this story. Nick Baptiste was my neighbor. And being a rookie, he treated me very well, and I was very happy with that because obviously with the experience that he had and whatnot. But being his neighbor was interesting because going to school in the morning, I would have to wake up earlier. I cleaned off his car, started his car, warmed it up, and then I'd wait in his car for him. So I was a rookie. I was a good rookie, but he appreciated it, and I'll never forget that. My parents had to buy me the thickest jacket possible because eventually I had to start walking to school, and so that always made it interesting. But
I'm guessing then at least that you did all that work. He was driving you to school.
Yeah.
Okay,
he would drive me.
That's something. You did the work and then you get a drive to school. Bit of a
it was nice. And I think it was. I guess it would have been his second year. He just got a new BMW too, so I didn't mind.
Yeah, you're rolling in style then.
Oh yeah, exactly. And you're with Baptiste, and yeah, he was a character. He was always a great guy to be around.
What was he like in the room?
Funny. He was funny. He was always a I don't know. He was hardworking. He was funny. He was just an overall good teammate to have. He was someone that you kind of would admire. And again, all the guys liked him, and he'd always be able to crack a joke. But when it was time to be serious, he was serious. And and what a phenomenal player too.
How did you pass time on the bus with some of those longer trips? What was your routine or ritual?
If I was never a guy that could take naps, so I was never the guy sleeping. If there was a movie on, there's a movie. But honestly, listening to music or just kind of hanging out with the guys, playing cards is always a classic. And especially with the longer road trips, if we didn't have a game, we could kind of joke around and stuff. We do some, rookie idol where the rookies would go up to the front and start singing and stuff like that. So we tried to pass the time as best as we could. And depending on how the games went, obviously played a factor. In Sudbury, we didn't watch too many movies after, but it was the opposite in Erie, so it made up for it.
What about game day for you? I've often kind of joked as a broadcaster that you don't bother talking to goalies on game day. And I don't want to get in anybody's space, but I know there tend to be some routines that are set and you have to go through them before a game.
Yeah, I tried not to be superstitious. I think that was something that was very important for me because I was at a point, because when I got to Sudbury and I saw how Pal Aziz was, he was very particular with the way his gameplay, his pre-game prep was. He followed a certain routine and it would not change. And so when I kind of adapted to that, especially my second year when I started playing more, there'd be some times where I would do my routine and then I would forget something and I would be like, oh no, I forgot that. And that was a big part of my game prep. And then I would almost it almost psyched me out a bit. So I tried to step away from that. When I got to Erie, my pregame routine was very relaxed. I tried to joke around with the guys a little bit when we play, sewer ball. And then when it got to about, 30 minutes before game time, headphones would go on and then I'd start my visualizing and my actual, hand-eye prep and stuff like that. But I was never a goalie that was overly superstitious. I had my things. I'd go right skate first before left, like a lot of people, but I was not too bad. I wasn't like some where, oh my God, I played with one goalie now. Was it Sam Tange? There was a way that if you positioned your cup, he had to position his cup a certain way. And if you didn't, it was nuts. Like little things like that. And I'm like, how do you even perform? I think I must drive you insane. Never mind that, it's so taxing before every game to do one after another. So I tried to stay away from that.
We recently had Corey Pecker on this podcast, who helped bring the first OHL championship to Erie. You were obviously a part of that next OHL championship. What did it mean to the city when you were able to capture that title?
Oh, it was awesome. You know, for one, the fans are awesome there. They're incredible. They're loud. They're passionate. And just to kind of bring that back was special for them. I mean, they've been waiting now since 2002, right? And never mind that, they had McDavid, Fox, and Brown at one point, and they had phenomenal teams. But there was always seemed to be that, you know, that other team that just was able to get the job done. So they were waiting, I felt, for at least 3 years where the anticipation was really high. So when I got there, you know, again, anticipation maybe wasn't as high until towards the end of the year, and I was happy that we were able to, you know, to win that for them. And you know, it showed. Their fans were awesome when they were with us all along the way.
So from the OHL championship, obviously, to the Memorial Cup, and in fact, right to the final itself. Before we talk specifically about the game, kind of in general, lots of people talk, and you would have been experiencing it, but with the host team and the automatic berth, the Windsor Spitfires were an early exit from the playoffs, and they had like 44 days or something like that between exiting the playoffs and coming back rested and healthy and all. How do you feel about the automatic berth?
It's always a controversial topic, you know. At the end of the day, there's always no excuse. You got to get there and you got to perform. I mean, it always helps if you have a little bit more rest and guys can, you know, heal from their injuries, right? So it is a controversial topic, but you know, no excuses. I know I play with Hayden McCool and Jeremiah Addison. So those are two guys that, you know, they're well deserved it. You know, they came, they had the plan, they knew what they were doing, and they outperformed. And you know, I guess that's the way that goes sometimes. I think there was another team that did too before, wasn't it? Like Charcuterie. There was a Charcuterie team out in Quebec.
Yeah, one of the Q teams. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
They were the last host team to do it, and I mean, yeah, like I said, controversial topic. For me, it's just, you know, at the end of the day, there's no excuses. You know, we had a phenomenal team, and unfortunately, Windsor was just better that night.
So take us through that game. You're leading after 2 periods. What's it like in your dressing room, up by a goal in the Memorial Cup final?
Yeah, I was, you know, trying to keep your composure. You know, understanding that when you go out there, we have 20 minutes, and they're going to give it their all, and we have to, you know, surpass that. So it was, you know, again, we had a lot of older guys in the room and a lot of experienced guys in the room, with Strome and Fogle and especially Sorelli. Like Sorelli's was through it. So we did lean on Sorelli quite a bit, and to kind of calm us down. I remember him kind of, you know, bring us back to earth a bit and understand that we got 20 minutes to play here. We went out there, and you know, the guys played phenomenal. It was I saw highlights from the game recently, and I was like, you know what, we actually played a pretty structured game pretty well, and they had a lucky, can't say lucky, but they had an unfortunate bounce, you know, that led them to go one up, and they took it. So congrats to them. I guess it sucks seeing Hayden McCool's tattoo, but what are you gonna do?
What is the tattoo? Is it the Memorial Cup from that year?
Yeah, it's the Memorial Cup, and then the date and whatnot. So, you know, again, well deserved. They had 44 days off to prepare, and they did exactly what you expect the team to do. And they were highly talented. They had Jeremy Bracco and everything. They were a very good team, and DiPietro in net was a stud. So again, they were not a team that we knew to take lightly, and that was never ever a thought. But again, they were better that night.
Yeah, they were a great team. There's no doubt about it. And I almost feel bad bringing this up, because I know that's probably among the lower points, but that's in sports. That's how you're measured, right? Wins, losses, results, etc. When you look back on it now, 5 years later, Troy, what are your reflections of the experience?
Of the Memorial Cup as a whole?
Yeah.
It was awesome. It's something I'll never forget. The entire experience, even away from the rink and how they structured the tournament, and Windsor as a city was awesome to be in. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun and kind of surreal at some points because, you know, there's a lot of attention on the Memorial Cup. It's something that I'll never forget, and you know, I'll cherish that. Just even when we lost and we were in the hotel as a group, you know, and just being with the guys kind of for like one last hurrah. It was, you know, those are the memories you'll never forget still. So that tournament was very well put on. The city of Windsor did a great job, and Caesars took a lot of my money.
I'm with you on that one, my man. I'm with you on that one. Damn that place. How's life in the CIS?
Yeah, it was good. So I played my second year in university with Ryerson there, and you know, it was an unfortunate start that I don't think I mean, they don't have the same media coverage, so a lot of people don't know this, but my very first practice with Ryerson, I got a puck to the throat and fractured my larynx. So I have a permanent crooked Adam's apple now. I was in the hospital overnight, but yeah, that set me back 3 months. I couldn't do anything to recover. They said, you can't put any stress, you can't lift any weights. Now you just got to recover pretty much. So it was awful. It was an awful start. When I got back, I was, you know, third string next to Dupuis and Garrett Forrest. So it was about, again, I've been in the position before where I've had to, you know, adversity, perseverance, and come back. And it was out of my control. I just had to kind of, you know, nose to the grindstone and work hard. My first game ended up being, I think it was in relief of Dupuis, and we ended up winning in overtime. So it was a nice first start, but it wasn't the CIS career that I was anticipating. A lot of things changed along the way, especially with kind of how I perceived my future. I've always wanted to be in business, with my dad's being successful in business and a huge role model to me and what he was able to achieve. I kind of admired that. And I said, well, you know what? I want to be in business. I want to have that knowledge at least. And I was in the entrepreneurship major there too. So after the second season, and battling a couple injuries along the way, COVID hit, and they made the team made a decision to kind of go with a younger goalie. And I kind of said, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to commit to coming back yet because of the pandemic. They went one way and I didn't really have much of a say. But that's kind of really where the end of my hockey career went. It was an unfortunate end because I didn't really get to write my own ending, but pandemic hit. Obviously this year they were back, and I guess essentially their practice goalie now. I volunteered because I'm so busy with school and my own business that it's just the way it worked out, where I contacted them because they lost a goalie to the ECHL and they had a very highly touted team. I said, if you guys need help, I'm here. So that's kind of where I'm at now with CIS. You know, it wasn't the career that I hoped for, but at the end of the day, I don't regret a single decision I've made because it's where I am now. I'm very happy.
I'm still with you here, but as you can see, I've done a terrible job with my lighting as the light went down on outside. So
it's happening to me too.
It looks better on your end still. It looks better on your end. This is going to be a little bit better here.
But me up too. There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
But you have proven, Troy, that there is life after hockey. Tell me about the Deep Clean Golf Club.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough, like I said, I'm in the entrepreneurship major, so it gave me some background on really how to, you know, form a startup and make it profitable and a viable business. So back in May, I was able to start the Deep Clean Club, and we are a luxury golf services and events company. We operate as a vendor for golf events, where we provide golfers with golf club cleaning, groove sharpening, grip revitalizing, shoe cleaning. We use ultrasonic technology. It's ultrasonic technology for the listeners if they don't know. What it does is it's an ultrasound machine that creates microscopic bubbles. And when the bubbles hit the surface of the golf club, instead of exploding, they implode. And it creates an energy which gives you the best clean of your life. They use it for jewelry, medical equipment as well. And I had to build a proprietary system in order to hold the clubs for it to work. And then I was fortunate enough to also develop our first ever club care, which is your very own golf club, grip, and shoe detailing kit. So kind of a one-stop shop for all your golf needs to clean and maintain your clubs. And I've taken that now. We're having a fun time with it because, when hockey's over and you retire, you get to swing in the clubs. And that's what I did. But with my resources and background, I was able to make a business out of it. So I'm excited for it.
I was going to mention golf clubs, not goalie sticks, eh?
Golf clubs, not goalie sticks. Yeah, it's funny too because when I started back with Ryerson a couple weeks ago now, just to practice here again, I was digging out my goalie equipment from underneath my stairs and finding goalie sticks. And I actually went to Hockey Life, and I couldn't believe the new technology they got already. And I was, kind of excited. I was like, oh, maybe I can get some new stuff. But then you see it's $400, and you'll stick to the old stuff for now. But yeah, no, I chose golf clubs. Yeah.
How's your golf game? What's your handicap?
It's gotten better. I'm sitting at probably an 8 handicap now. So when COVID hit, that was really the first time I got into golf. So I improved very quickly. Myself and my buddy Andrew Court, we're very competitive. Him and I actually played with Andrew when I went to Georgetown. So he and I kind of began battling with golf, and that's kind of where the love for the game kind of started. I wanted something that, I always loved the competition in sports, especially with hockey and competing and trying to do better. And with golf, you're always competing against yourself. So it was something that I did all religiously when COVID hit.
Who coached you in Georgetown?
Greg Walters.
Greg Walters, of course. Yeah.
He was awesome. He was awesome. He was a great guy, great coach, players coach. You wanted to play for him. Like, you really wanted to play for him and do the best you could. Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah. So is the plan for you, Troy, moving forward to stay with golf? Obviously, this is something you're just getting into. Have you ever thought of, working your way back into the game at a coaching level, maybe a goalie school, anything like that?
Yeah, I've had my experiences with coaching. For 2 years, I went to Las Vegas for the Desert Cup, where I was a mentor and coach for a team. And I liked the experience. I didn't realize how much I actually knew about the game out of the position of goaltending until I did that. Moving forward, I know my good friend Jake Smith has started a company called BTL Hockey, where he's looking to develop, to move into the development space as well. And he's talked to me about potentially doing stuff with goaltending. And I do still love the game, and I do still have it between the ears, and that's something that'll never go away. Given my time right now, it might not be the most viable thing, but in the future, I could definitely see myself getting back into it. I play men's league still, and I'm a player in men's league, which is
really.
Yeah, and I've honestly, the last couple of years now that I haven't been a goalie, I've taken up being a player, and it's something I wish I did from the start. I love being a player. I think I would have been a phenomenal player, and I do well. I'm a good skater. I have a good shot. So yeah, it keeps me entertained for sure. I think a lot of goalies. Yeah.
After you snipe on someone, do you tell them what they did wrong?
Well, what's funny is, and I was talking to another goalie the other day about it, is that being a player now, it's just, how to score on a goalie. So there's certain aspects where I find myself on the ice when I receive the puck, where I kind of know where the goalie will be out of position, and I know where to aim without really looking right off the bat. I know that he might make the mistake of coming off the post too much on his glove hand side and getting into too much detail, but I quickly can assess that and know where a goalie might make the mistake and make that shot. So it's benefited me. So like I said, when you have it between the ears, it's something that kind of won't go, which is good.
It's funny when you talk about that detail. It's a good thing, Troy, that my usual partner Chris Pope isn't with me today, because he's a former goalie too. And sometimes the conversations he has with other goalies, I don't even understand the language you're speaking. I really don't.
Yeah. We're an unusual breed, right?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
It's funny though, because honestly, for a goaltender, I never was a guy that was really in tune with my equipment. Like, I know a lot of goalies were very particular and knew the specs down to the centimeter or the flex. And I was never the guy that really understood it. And I just said, this is how I like to play. and I would talk to the CCM reps or whoever it was. And I'd say, can you make me something that is a little bit like this, that, and they would have to do it all for me because I really wouldn't know. So I was never that guy. There's a lot of goalies out there that are very particular, and I wasn't.
When you look back on your time in the Ontario Hockey League, what do you take away from it? What great memories were there? What is your big takeaway?
The people you meet, the people you meet is something that my dad has always stressed to me too, is your network. Your network is your net worth. And the amount of people that I met from when I was a young 15-year-old, whether it was my billets to, I remember my second year, I was very close with the Zulich family in Sudbury as well. And these are the connections that you build and they last a lifetime. So that's one thing from the OHL, whether it's Jim Waters, the owner of Erie, who did a lot for me, to the general manager in Sudbury who drafted me. It's these connections you meet, they last a lifetime. And it's really important for the kids to understand that just because when hockey's done doesn't mean you stop, communicating with these guys. These guys are really important, and, just reaching out to them once in a while, it goes a long way.
And when you got to know that Zulich family, you came to realize that Dario really does have a wardrobe full of white shirts and blue jeans. That's all it ever is.
Oh yeah. He's like the Godfather. I remember, I'd go over to his place for dinner, and they'd have a very long table and a big family, right? Italians. And sure enough, he'd be at the head of the table, and I think of him as the Godfather because he was the man. He was the man. Dario and I had a great relationship, and it was unfortunate that he took over the team the year that I got traded, but he's a great owner from what I hear, and he's doing good things.
Yeah, I've heard so many of the same things, and honestly, every time I see him, it's the same look: the jeans and the white dress shirt, and they've got new arena play. What would you think of that, though? I mean, because we talked earlier about the Sudbury Arena, and I like the arenas with character. I guess progress is going to happen, but I'd miss the old barn a little bit.
Yeah, there's talk, right, about them getting a new spot. I heard it was built with like a casino, or I heard a lot of stuff that was happening. I actually heard it from my first year. There's been rumors for years. So whenever it happens, it's going to be sad to see the barn kind of laid to rest. But at the same time, it's something that maybe the fans could use. A new scenery. It's something that maybe even an attraction for younger players too, because there was always issues with potentially highly touted players not wanting to come to Sudbury facility wise. But one thing I could tell them is that they're wrong for that. It's never about where you are in particular. It's what you make of it, and Sudbury can give you a lot if you give it the kind of respect that it deserves. I love that city more than anything, and I've visited it last year. I went up just to see it again because I missed just the scenery and whatnot. So it's a historic town for sure.
It is. That's a fantastic piece of advice too. Troy, this has been a ton of fun. Thanks a lot for making the time for us to catch up. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it too. Take care.